Welcome to He Did This to Me, the sports podcast from a father and son who happen to be mostly optimistic Knicks, Mets, and Jets fans. My name is Nick, a.k.a. Goody, and with me is my old man, a.k.a. the big guy, Noel. And just like his name, all we do is win. Let's get to the show. It's time to begin. The Boston Celtics won their record 18th championship, defeating the Dallas Mavericks 3-1. Jaylen Brown, MVP. Talk to me, big guy. How did you feel about how that championship series wrapped up?
It wasn't the most entertaining championship series, unfortunately, for us basketball fans. But it was, Boston deserved it. I mean, look, they did what they had to do. They beat who was in front of them. I don't take anything away from them. I thought Jaylen Brown deserved the MVP. But I mean, listen, Tatum was right there. As we spoke about last week, I don't feel like there's any animosity between the two. In fact, the things that he said after the game were great. And I'm just happy. I'm happy for those guys, just as, young men. Obviously, I don't root for the Celtics, but I did think they would win the series. And, we'll see where it goes from here. But they clearly have done a very good job this year. They've been dominant throughout the season, and they deserve their flowers, as they say nowadays.
Yeah, you got to give those guys all of the credit. They were the most dominant team throughout the entire regular season. They are a team that has been at the doorstep over and over again in this last handful of years. And they got in. Listen, they can only play who's in front of them. I've already seen some people talking about the fact that they played the Pacers. They played the Heat without Jimmy Butler. They played the Pacers, who wouldn't have won either of their two series prior had there not been major injuries to their opponents. But Boston, that's all they can do is play who's in front of them. They swept the Pacers and took care of business with them. And then they win the championship series 4-1. And they now have, like I said, that 18th banner, and they've had this team that they've built up. They've made little tweaks here and there. There was a lot of people who said, absolutely not, do not get rid of Marcus Smart. And they were able to bring in Drew Holiday, who I think is the unsung hero of this team and means so much to them, and clearly is just a winner and a championship player, and got them over that hump. They bring in Porzingis, even though he's in and out of the lineup, super valuable when he is in the lineup. And they play a certain style of basketball. They play hard, very good switching help defense, and they shoot a lot of threes, but they have other ways they can score. You got to give them all the credit. Got to give Brad Stevens all the credit. Got to give Mazzulla all the credit. And the question now is, do you see this being a team that could potentially be a dynasty?
Could be. I mean, listen, what's funny to me is that the last 6 years, there have been a different team winning every year. The dynasty is right now a thing of the past with the NBA. So unlike the other major sports leagues.
What about the Warriors?
The Warriors were the last to do it, two in a row 6 years ago.
So they had the two in a row, but then they just had one core group of guys win a total of 4. In my opinion, that makes them a dynasty for sure.
Sure, I think they're a dynasty, but it's just like you're not getting it before, like in the 80s and 90s, Nick, you were getting 2 repeats and 3-peats, and
sure,
just a lot more that 2 and 4 years,
even up into the 2000s with the Lakers.
Right. Now you're seeing a lot more parity, which is what we're used to in the NFL, which is what we've gotten used to in Major League Baseball. Starting to see it now more in the NBA. Listen, I'm hoping there is no dynasty because I want our Knicks to bust all that up. But
shout out to Julius.
That's
saying
right,
that
Julius.
In the postgame when they asked him about a dynasty.
Let fake fan Stephen A. know. But no, I appreciate that from Julius for sure, and that's exactly what I think. I mean, it's just so crazy. Like, so many things can change in the NBA as far as personnel and who's on this team, who's on that. I don't think Philly's going to put themselves there this year, but you know what? With free agency, anything could happen. So I'm not going to say no until I know how the team shake out. But they're a really good team with those two guys, up front. They're a juggernaut, no doubt, for the next few years.
Yeah, I look at it, to talk a little bit of Knicks real quick, I look at it as a blueprint for the Knicks as far as don't always go out there and get, as you always like to say, the shiny object, make that sexy move. keep your core guys, add some, pieces here and there. But a lot of people were saying, hey, they might need to get rid of Jaylen Brown. A lot of people have been extremely critical of Tatum throughout his career. And those guys, they kept them together, and they added in, different players, whether it be a Porzingis, whether, it be a Drew Holiday. They added in guys that fit those main core players and those main core too. And I hope the Knicks do the same thing with Julius and with Brunson moving forward. And a lot of people felt like Jason Tatum should have won the MVP. Okay, so he becomes the first player ever to lead the championship team in points, rebounds, and assists and not win the award. Brown had the latest per for finals MVP since 1991. And then if you just look at their stats next to each other, Tatum 2.2, Brown 20.8, Tatum 7.8 rebounds per game, Brown 5.4, Tatum 7.2 assists per game, Brown only 5 assists per game. But what did you think about that? I know that you said that you did think that Jaylen Brown deserved it, but did you think that it was, really close? And would you have been upset if Tatum had won the finals MVP?
I wouldn't have been upset. I would have been very happy if they had done a co-MVP thing.
Okay. I thought this was great. A perfect opportunity for that.
Yes. Have they ever done that in the NBA? I don't know.
I don't think so.
But the other thing is that just the eye testing, if you watched that series as we all did, you felt like Jaylen Brown was the best player out there. Okay. The way he was defending Luka, that made a huge difference, man. I mean, and that's the other thing I want to mention. I hope folks don't come with that recency bias and say, oh, well, the Celtics had this easy route and all that. Listen to me. You know as well as I do. I mean, obviously you do. You picked what's the name? Dallas
Mavericks.
To win the series.
Sure.
Right. I mean, a lot of people thought, listen, you can't stop Luka. You can't stop Luka and Kyrie. There's no way. Blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? They beat a team that a lot of people thought, could win this series, and for good reason. They looked really good. So they did what they had to do. And I think Tatum, like I heard somebody saying, what's his name? Curry didn't win the MVP for like the first 2 or 3 times they went there. You know what I mean? So I don't think that.
I think
really
he won
matters.
it the second time, but yeah,
I think he won it the third time. Well, because Kevin Durant won it once.
Andre Iguodala won it. Then and then Durant won 2 of them, and then maybe he won just the 4th time then.
Right,
because Iguodala won the first, and then right. Durant won both when he was there.
Yeah. So, but I think I think this guy Jaylen Brown wanted it fair and square, and I don't think anybody has an actual problem with that. There can be debate, but I don't think anybody has a problem.
Oh, I definitely think there's some people that have a problem just from some of the different things that I've seen online, both from people that cover Boston sports and then also just, fans of Boston sports. People think that there's like an agenda against Tatum for some reason. I do think that sometimes the criticism that he gets is a little hyperbolic, but when it comes to the finals MVP, I feel exactly the same way you do as far as eye test. It wasn't, that last game, Jason Tatum was the best player on the floor all the way around in that clinching game, no doubt. I was happy for him to get a finals performance in a clinching game like that, just because of, some of the shooting woes that he had in this finals and in this playoffs, really in the playoffs in general in his career. His shooting percentage numbers are much lower than regular season. But when you look at that series, like you said, the defense on Luka, the huge defensive back-breaking plays at ends of halves when he's picking his pocket, and and then also some of the huge shots that he hit down the stretch of some of those games that were close. I would go with Jaylen Brown as well. And there has never been a NBA Finals co-MVP. And as you were saying that, I remembered that Windhorst said earlier that there's 11 votes, so therefore there couldn't be a co-MVP. Well, I guess if you had 1 vote for somebody and 5 and 5, I guess that would end up being, if one person was say one person went for Drew Holiday and the other 5. But yeah, no, I thought this would have been a perfect opportunity for that. I think that Drew Holiday might actually be the most valuable player on that team, but I understand with statistics and the way that things work that he's never going to win that in this scenario. I just thought that they played a much more disciplined brand of basketball than the Mavs did. They defensively are obviously a much more just not just disciplined, but like their strategy and the way that they play and their game plan, it seems, is much more strategic, as well as they are much more dialed into it than the Mavs are. I mean, we know that Luka is an absolute saloon door when it comes to playing defense, and in many games you could take just one game and take a highlight reel of all the blow-bys on Luka and all the times that he's just not boxing out or not showing supreme effort. And on Boston, there's none of that. And clearly they have a team culture where that's just not going to cut it. Guys, you're not going to be able to be on that team. And that's because it starts at the top with those two best players, with Jaylen Brown and with Jason Tatum. And it goes throughout the entire team. Whereas on Dallas, when you look at the top, you have Luka, and that's not the best example, obviously. One of the questions that I think is interesting is, do you think that the Mavs are a team that is going to be in the championship conversation for the foreseeable future? Or are they one of those teams that gets there to that, gets there to the mountaintop, doesn't quite get over, and then they kind of fade back and you never see it again?
That's a really tough question. A lot of that has to do with what you just spoke about with Luka. I mean, if Luka is going to be a leader, I've heard some people talking craziness about maybe you should shop Kyrie now at the height of his value. And I'm like, dude, man, like you said with Brown and Tatum, you have a good twosome. You have to try to find a way to make that duo work together, get better, grow these guys up. Luka's still very young. I wouldn't trade Kyrie away from that team. And I think it's going to be tough for them to contend unless Luka has an awakening. If Luka has an awakening, then then maybe they'll then maybe they'll start playing better. But the defense, all of that, it has to start with him. He has to let people know that, and the only way he can do that is if he picks it up and gets in better shape.
Once again, dead on. I think when it comes to that team, their next level, Kyrie's, we saw Kyrie amend his game a little bit, and in doing so, he leveled up a little bit as an overall basketball player and just as far as how he contributes to the overall team. Luka, the next step from him is get in better shape, and then also just mindset wise when it comes to defensive and rebounding assignments, just leveling it up. We're not asking you to be a all world, first team or even third team defensive player, but you can't be a total net negative on that side of the ball. We've talked about it before. He has all of the physical skills. He's got to figure out a way to get better. And I think that the microscope that got put on him in this finals, you would think a guy that's been able to ascend to the heights that he has will have the, self-reflection and introspection and be able to, in this offseason and throughout next season, chill out with getting at the refs, get yourself in slightly better shape, and at least be serviceable on defense. Those things are not huge asks, but they're major level ups for him and for that entire team if he's able to do those things. And, we've seen in one offseason a guy can really, really change. We've seen it with our own Julius, where, you got to do some soul searching, and then you come out and you really put an emphasis on certain things, especially those are all mental. Those are all mental things. It's not like, the work ethic part, that's probably the hardest one, is him getting into better shape, but he can do it. He absolutely can do it. And he's in very good shape. He plays NBA basketball, but getting his body into that elite physical level will definitely take him up to a whole different, whole different stratosphere as far as his game. And it's scary to think of what that could be for Luka. Hopefully he does it, because, he's a great talent, and I'd like to see him max out.
Yeah, no, I definitely think he can be better, man. I mean, and that's the thing. The guy is so incredibly good right now, and he could be a decent amount better, Nick. I mean, if this guy is in, like you said, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, maybe 15 pounds, better shape, just more committed, more driven, because again, we saw moments during this series where it was game 4. He was really out there running around playing D. So you know he can do it. Okay, we know he can do it. He just has to commit to it. And like you said, man, he doesn't have to be that guy all the time. And anybody who says, I had somebody say to me, your Uncle Godfrey, that this guy doesn't get tired. And it's like, no, man, if you looked at him in the fourth quarter of some of those games, you could see fatigue in his effort.
Oh yeah.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt,
Even if he doesn't look like he's absolutely gassed and he's struggling out there, you can just look at him and know he's not in the best shape that he possibly can be. Period. Point blank, period.
No doubt.
And there's a different level that he can go to if he gets in that better shape. It might be a jump shot that falls short here and there. It might be the ability to continue to move your feet and play defense at a certain level. There's a lot of different things that he could be a little bit better at if he was in a little bit better shape. And when we're talking about the best of the best, the pinnacle of basketball, those, little incremental steps, they mean something.
They mean a whole lot. And, I'd like to think he's a young guy and he's got some good people around him and he'll make some better decisions. I think with him, a lot of it's going to be diet. I mean, I'm sorry, man, but there are times when this guy turns his body, and you can see the fat rolls in his midsection, in the midriff. I mean, that's insane, Nick.
Not when you're a world-class basketball player. Absolutely.
Not when you're anybody. Dude, Nick, if you look like that at 22, I'd say, what are you doing? What are you doing? Whether you're a 22-year-old man, what are you doing?
Right.
You're only going to go downhill from here. Shape it up.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But yeah, congratulations to the Boston Celtics. I hate that city's fan base. I hate pretty much all of their teams. Really specifically their fan base though, but we're going to have to hear it now for the next 11 months at least. And How's your boy Ime Udoka feeling right now?
He's a fool, man. He's a clown. I mean, come on, man. It's just a very stupid move all the way around. You got to give, like you said, Brad Stevens and that Celtics team and hierarchy, they didn't panic. They didn't panic. And that's what I think they've done well. Like you said, with not always going after the shiny object, it's what I see with the Knicks more and more is no panicking, no pulling the ejection, the ejection lever or whatever. Come on, let's calm down. Let's take it easy and let's make sober decisions. And that's what they did. And they clearly saw something in this guy, Mazzulla, who everybody was maligning last year and some of this year. And he's clearly done a good job. Those guys want to play for him. So he's clearly done a good job. He's definitely making some good moves. He's no Tibbs, but he's made some good moves.
Nah, he's definitely no Tibbs, but yeah. It'll be interesting. I'm really interested to see, that team and how things play out for them next season. Other than Porzingis, they were extremely fortunate when it comes to injuries. And usually the team that wins it all is fortunate when it comes to injuries overall. Mm-hmm. And I just, I'd love to see a full strength Knicks team against them in a playoff series. We had that game towards the end of the season where they played all their players and, we still didn't have Julius, but we did have OG and we blew them out. And I just think that we match up pretty well with them, depending on whether or not we can bring back OG and Anunoby, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But if you're feeling the content or you think we're two loathsome, offensive brutes, and yet you can't look away, give a thumbs up or a 5-star rating. Make sure you subscribe and or hit that notification button on YouTube or wherever you're listening. Monty Williams is out. The Detroit Pistons decided to part ways with their head coach after one season. He is still owed $65 million. Last year, their team won 14 games, including 28 straight losses at one point, which is a new NBA record. Have we ever seen such a steep fall from grace as we have with Mr. Monty Williams?
No. And honestly, I don't think he did a very good coaching job last year. They seem to be in total disarray. I mean, but then again, I suppose like when we had like Fizdale coaching us, and we won like what 16,
17 games.
17 games. I
Jesus.
wonder, were other people looking at us saying, "Oh my God, look, these guys are totally dysfunctional. They're out of control."
Yes, that's exactly what other people were looking at us saying. That's what we were saying as Knicks fans.
Right.
Fizdale, it was real easy to figure out that guy was a fucking joke, Dad.
It is so easy to press your buttons. Just mention the name Fizdale, Phil Jackson, Isaiah Thomas.
No, hey, we that last name we don't say on this podcast. We don't say. I'm gonna bleep that out.
But yeah, it's amazing to me that they just eat 5 years and 65 mil. That's mind blowing to me. But it just goes to show you exactly how wealthy these people really are.
Yeah,
that they could just be like, "Hey, Monty, you know what? Do us a favor, stay home and just eat the 65 mil."
But let me ask you a question about that. And I'm not exactly sure about this, but I think I know how it works. If he now becomes a coach for someone else,
the difference.
Okay.
But he has to be. He can't be a head coach. I think if he's a head coach, that's it. The 65 mil is over, regardless of what he's getting paid over here.
Right.
But if he's an assistant coach, say getting paid $2 million, and these guys are going to have to pay him to balance every year.
Yo, Monty, you might want to chill for a few years, brother.
At least take 1 year and just chill, travel.
Oh, at least 1 year. 1 year. Just take 1 year.
You get a job. He could be on any of the networks. The networks. It's all changing up. They're going to want new talent. Here's my prediction: Monty Williams going to be on one of them TV crews, man.
Yeah, that's the move.
He looks the part. Come on.
He looks the part. He's a well-spoken guy. He's not going to say anything wild or crazy because he's not that guy at all. He's a very pious man. He seems it's weird because it seems like people around the league, when they speak of him, do it with some reverence and some respect. Yet he clearly just wears out his welcome. In Phoenix, he just a couple seasons before they let him go, he was 64-18 and they made it to the finals. And then a couple seasons later, you're out. That was in 21-22. He was 64-18.
They got a new owner.
Right. Maybe, but it seems like when these new people, and that's what's happening here, where same thing, new owner, new head of basketball operations, Trajan Langdon, by the way, who I loved him when he was in college at Duke. Guy that was like, he was the JJ Redick, the Jimmer Fredette. He was those guys before them. But then, man, it's, I don't know, man. I'm just surprised that this guy keeps getting shown the door. I feel like there's more to this. There's going to be some story where, it's going to be like some Mark Jackson type shit where he's like, he's out there like, trying to have team prayers and whatnot or something like that. And guys on the team are just like, I'm not with that. I don't know. I feel like there has to be more to this. Why this guy continues to outwear his welcome seems like so quickly with these teams. For them to bring him in 1 year and for this, like think about that, man. Like the ownership, the people that, and it's supposedly it came down from ownership. They say that Monty was totally blindsided. He's had multiple meetings with Trajan Langdon recently and felt like things were going in the right direction. They're talking about the future. And then they say that a couple people in the ownership group came down and said, no, he's out. We got to get rid of him. What has he done that makes them feel like after 1 year, this guy who has had great success before and a couple years ago was the most coveted coach in all of basketball, that they're just like, no, I don't want to see anymore. Get him out of here. I feel like there's got to be something more to it.
Maybe, Nick, maybe he's a demanding guy, and new ownership comes in and they're like.
Demanding of whom? The players?
Demanding of the players and kind of rigid in how he wants things done and relating with the hierarchy. Maybe. That's why new people come in and they're like, yo, we're not acquiescing to your whims. We're the owners,
Yeah.
I could see that. But then again, listen, you say, oh, what's he doing? Listen, the people who owned in Detroit the year before when they hired him and paid him the highest salary of any coach in the league, I have to think that these people did their due diligence, looked into him and everything, and were satisfied to not only hire him, but to make him the highest paid guy. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think when you have enough money, if this is not your hand-picked guy and you can afford to eat that 65 mil, you're just like, okay, he's out. And it's just like, I don't know, leaving money at the laundromat. I mean, it's not a big deal for these people, man.
Yeah, and listen, they have a lot of young talent. They have the 5th pick in this upcoming draft. It seems like a team that, can be struggling and down in the basement, and then a couple guys make a leap, you get in a good rookie, you get a decent vet, and then all of a sudden they're looking a little bit better, and they're a team that's on the rise. We've seen a lot of teams do that in recent memory. The one that comes to mind is OKC, and all it takes is to hit on a pick. But Ivy, the jury's still out on him. Cade Cunningham is a certified baller. He's just got to stay on the court. And, they have some other good young pieces on that team. I don't really see how they're attracting any sort of free agent other than, crazy overpaying for a guy who is on the way on the downward turn of his overall career. I just, like I said, I'm telling you, someday we're going to find out a little bit more about Monty, and there's something else going on here. It's just, it's weird to me that this guy continues to get, bounced right after, having such big success. And in this instance, coming into a team that everybody knew was not going to be good, and they pretty much were what everybody thought they were going to be. It's supposed to be a process. He's got all this money left, and they just bounce him. I'm telling you, man, there's something more to it, but time will tell.
Yeah, you never know, but it is pretty bizarre.
The New York Mets have won 7 straight. They are 12-4 in their last 16. Undefeated since Grimace threw out the first pitch, and playing much, much better baseball since the players-only meeting called by Francisco Lindor. Talk to me, big guy. How you feeling about our Mets?
I'm pumped. I mean, especially now that basketball's over, and at least there'll be some interest with the MLB watching the Mets play every day. And listen, I'm pumped with the way the team's playing. That win last night was outstanding. I don't feel like we're out of games. When we went down 6-1 or 6-2 yesterday, I didn't feel like we were out of the game, and I was rewarded for feeling that way. I mean, geez, man, this guy JD Martinez he's everything I thought he would be. For years, I've been screaming, can we get this guy JD Martinez? And to have him now, it's interesting. I heard, I think it was Gary Cohen and Keith talking about it the other day, but how many teams this guy has been on, and it's just surprising. Why would you want to push this guy out the door? But they said, think about it, in Dodger land, they had Shohei Ohtani coming in as the DH. You can't keep JD Martinez and have Shohei Ohtani on the team.
He's also a guy that's always coveted and gets moved if your team is out of it.
People want him.
If you're out of it and you're getting up to the the trade deadline, he's a guy that's going to fetch you a few decent prospects, because he's a guy that you can plug into the middle of any lineup. He's just a professional hitter, man. I mean, he's Mr. Oppo Taco. Obviously loves driving that ball to that right center field gap. Keith loves it. Keith loves it. Keith like salivates over JD, and the ball hitting to the opposite. He just goes with it and hits it to the opposite field gap. And it's almost surprising in the game, last night where they beat the Texas Rangers in game 2 of the series. They were down 6-2. They were able to rally, and JD actually wasn't much of a part of that. There were some games last week where he was all of the offense, and he's been pretty consistent here. He won, NL Player of the Week just last week, and it's interesting. Like, there was a couple at bats that he had last night where he struck out on 3 pitches, and he looked at the first pitch, and he looked at strike 3, and it's almost like, I'm like, what the fuck is going on when this guy does that? Like, is he okay?
Right.
Just because it just seems like he has such a good eye, such great plate discipline, and his ability to hit that ball the opposite way into the gap and sometimes into the seats is just uncanny. They say that the way that he looks at hitting and the way he talks about having an approach up there is something that has, kind of rubbed off on the other guys. And you're seeing certain guys like Pete, when I saw him get that base hit to the opposite field the other day, I said, okay, things are going to start working for Pete, because, with Pete, at the end of the day, it's all about him staying level, having a little bit less uppercut. And I've seen breakdowns where that has definitely helped, or has definitely changed here recently, where he has, gotten his swing to be a little bit more line drive. And with Pete, in that RBI double that he had in the ninth, that when Pete's not driving the ball out and he's not hitting the ball the opposite way, when he's just out in front, he's ripping that ball down the line for a double. We've seen it over the years with Pete. That's him being a well-rounded hitter that's hitting the ball to all fields with a nice level swing, and Pete starting to step up. Lindor has been fantastic at the plate and in the field. You know, we got to figure out a way to get him started a little bit earlier, as far as, you know, get him started in April and May when he seems to just become a good player in June all of a sudden. But man, has he been fantastic since June. He's hitting like 315 since he's been put into the leadoff spot. The fielding is absolutely excellent. You know, just always knows the right play to make, and occasionally adds in just a sparkling play. And the guy's just a leader. He's an absolute leader. You can see it, the way that he carries himself on the field. I love the exuberance that he shows, and I think it's very important for this team. I think the three guys, when it comes to their overall just attitude and injury, you got him, you got Sugar, and you got our guy who's back, and we're 17-1 when he's in the lineup, Francisco Alvarez. This guy is an impact player on both ends. He makes everyone fall into place. Obviously, you know the record, his overall energy. There's a lot of parallels between Alvarez and our guy, OG Anunoby.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that. But
think about it. Look at the record overall, the way that when he gets slotted in, everything, both what he does on the defensive end and the offensive end, it's very similar.
Falls into place. No, I listen, everything you've seen recently has been really exciting. Even a lot of the pitching has been good. That guy Nunez is just lights out. He's amazing.
You love Nunez. Every time we talk, you bring up Nunez.
And I will keep doing it. As long as he keeps pitching this well, why wouldn't I? I mean, come on, man. The guy's been amazing. Reed Garrett looks good. What's the other guy with the mustache? What's my man's stash? I like him too. But listen, give Mendoza his accolades as well. He's done a good job of keeping this team even keel, but there's still a very, very, very long way to go. So hopefully we can keep it up, stay even, stay level. It'll be real interesting. Hopefully we can stay hot going into playing the Yankees next week.
Yeah, that Subway Series all of a sudden could definitely have a little bit of juice. You know, Tyler McGill and Peterson, both of them have been solid in starts. Vientos continues to rake. He's hitting 317, 929 OPS, back-to-back 3-hit games. And that's the thing with him, is we've seen him be red hot and then just absolute go into the tank. He started to fall off a little bit, gets 2 3-hit games back-to-back, and all of a sudden, you know, all the numbers look good again. And you're a guy who is an absolute weapon in that lineup. I love Vientos. I love what he does. He's always hitting the ball hard. Marte has been solid. He looks like he's running well on the bases, and he's been hitting the ball to opposite field, been hitting the ball hard, been hitting line drives. But out in the field a couple times, there's a ball that it's like, dude, I need you to get to that ball that he's not getting to. I don't know exactly what's going on. They said something about, you know, the reflection when he was in London. I don't know.
That was a real thing, though. The London thing, the skies were all gray. It's that London fog stuff.
It was indoors.
Yeah, well, no, it was the background up there. And
there's the background they said was white.
And there was an opening. There was an opening in that arena.
All right, but it wasn't about, I know, but it wasn't about the skies being gray. Okay. It was about, I don't know what it is. And it didn't just happen in London. I need him to be able to get to some of these balls, but you know, I think maybe that's something got to do with the double pelvic surgery. Who knows, man? I don't know. But hopefully he just continues to stay healthy. I like what we've been able to do with getting him some days off. And when we have everybody healthy and guys like Bader and DJ Stewart are at least giving you quality at bats, we're able to get Marte those days off without losing too much. And Nimmo, I got to take a little credit here. Last time I was on with my guy CPNY for the True Mets Talk Sports post game, I said to him, we need to move JD to the third. Pete Alonso, I'm old school. I want Pete Alonso to be in the fourth spot. He is a typical cleanup hitter. Stop this 2-spot nonsense. And Nimmo should be a number 2 hitter. He's perfect for the number 2. He's willing to take pitches to let that guy who's on base move over. He's an on-base guy, and he's got a little bit of pop. And since he's been in the 2-hole, it seems like he has, been reborn. He's looking like the Nimmo that we gave the big contract to. Loving what I'm seeing out of him. Thought it was huge that he got that home run in, right after they put up the 5 spot on the Mets to take that 6-2 lead, just to show the team, hey, we're right back in this. Let's go. And loving what I'm seeing out of Nimmo. Wish he could somehow learn to not have such a pop gun arm, but I don't think that's going to change at this point. But man, it seems like we're all moving. The starters are taking care of business. Severino, even when he does have that one bad inning, has an overall decent start, gets us into the later innings, so we don't have to burn up the whole bullpen. And Sugar is back. Sugar is back. He's got the fire. The emotion part is huge. And I saw Alvarez talk about the fact that when he was down and he was watching, from afar coming up, one of the things he noticed about Edwin Diaz is that he didn't have that typical emotion that he has. And he said, that was one of the things I wanted to remind him of when I got back. And the thing about Alvarez is that multiple players talk about it in post games about how the everything is different when he's there. Obviously, it's the defender that he is. It's his ability, to be able to get big hits in big moments. That double last night was probably the biggest hit of the game. Huge, great at bat, fantastic at bat, and gets the 3-2. He's not looking to walk. He gets the pitch that he wants, and he drives it into the gap and brings in those 2 runs to tie the game. And I just, everybody seemed to be a bit awoken. And again, you got to give credit to our guy Lindor. He had the players only meeting. He's continued to lead even when, things weren't going as great for him. And now he's looking like one of the best shortstops in baseball. And the Mets are looking like a team who's got a real chance to, at least challenge for a wild card.
No doubt. One other point I wanted to make about you brought up with Severino staying in the game. I have to say, I thought, after he gave up that 5 spot, I'm like, during that inning, I was screaming, get this guy out of there, get him out.
Dad, just before that with Simeon, he gave up like 3 almost home runs, but the guy was just a little bit out in front. And then they sent him back in to face Simeon again. And I was like, yo, what are we doing? I could not believe
they kept him in the game. But you know what? It turned out to be the right move. I mean, listen, if he gets blown up the next inning, then we're saying, what's wrong with Mendoza? Why is he leaving this guy in the game? Yeah, and because everybody in that inning when he gave up 5 runs, Nick, everybody was hitting the ball hard.
Ropes.
I was like, this guy's getting rocked. But he kept him in the game, preserved the bullpen, and he held it down after that. I was very surprised at that. I thought that was excellent managing.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, Mendoza's got to get some credit, man. He's kept this team afloat. We are now in position to make a run. At one point, we were so out of it that we weren't even in position to even have a chance to make a run. Now we are in position to make a run. And, I'm really interested to see how it all plays out. And hopefully we can make it happen. And, like you said, continue to give us something to be excited about as we get into the dog days of summer. And we'll see how it goes. But at the end of the day, man, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets. Let's go.
If you're feeling the content or you think we're 2 loathsome, offensive brutes, and yet you can't look away, give a thumbs up or a 5-star rating. Make sure you subscribe and or hit that notification button on YouTube or wherever you are listening. Are you worried about the report that OG Anunoby is not thrilled with the Knicks offer and will entertain free agency?
I'm not happy to hear that. I would have rather today if we got some Pascal Siakam-like news.
Right.
That, but, I mean, listen, man, again, the Knicks have chosen to do things in a very slow and sober way. I mean, what are you going to do? Give this guy $190 million, man. I mean, you have to have some serious health clauses in there if you're going to do something like that.
It's the NBA, It doesn't work like that in the NBA. This is not football or baseball with the health clauses. Like, no,
he can't have any health clauses. He's going to get guaranteed money.
He's just going to get the money. It's just the money. It is what it is. They don't have incentive laden contracts like they do in other sports.
Right. You're right. That's tough, man. That's tough. Everybody's saying he'll probably get average around $35 million a year. And if that's what it is, then that's what it is. I don't give a shit what you pay him. I'm not concerned about the dollars and cents. It's Dolan's money, not mine. All I care about is that they get him signed. I hope they do. If they don't, that's a huge hole for us, man, especially because what we gave up to get him. And now I feel like the Knicks have to sign him. They're going to sign him one way or another. I think he's a higher priority than Hartenstein, obviously.
Yeah, He is a higher priority than Hartenstein. And I read something that gave a breakdown on it's not just a monetary penalty if you get into the second apron. It actually affects how you can do business when it comes to signing guys and mid-level exceptions and all this other shit. And so, it is something to think about. It's not a thing where you can it's just a blank check and it's like, Dolan can eat it. Like, we do have to be strategic in how we sign guys, what we sign them for. And I'm hoping that we can get this worked out. I don't put too much weight into this report by Windhorst because it was just a very even Windhorst delivery of it was not too strong as far as like, oh, this is something you need to look at. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think that if you're him, why wouldn't you go out and, look at some different situations? And like I said, if he's the type of guy that because he makes an extra $5 to $8 million a year, he wants to go play for some slapdick team, then all right, man, peace. If we're going to build what we need to build, we need the Jalens, we need the Juliuses, we need all of the Hartensteins, we need all these guys to be willing to take, $5, $6, $7 million less than the absolute max what they could make to be able to give us the ability to be able to keep this entire team together. And that's just the reality of what it is in today's NBA. And, Josh Hart and Julius Randle are not being guests analysts on the finals games if they play for the Houston Rockets. At the end of the day, part of that cachet and part of that overall just visibility that they have and the fact that people actually want to hear them talk is because they play for the Knicks. It's not just New York City. It's the organization. It's the franchise. Everybody knows in certain ways, we make the NBA go. Everybody talks about how the NBA is better when the Knicks are good. I don't hear anybody say that about any other team. Okay. And the fact that we're consistently in the conversation with as bad as we have been over these years. I mean, come on, man. At the end of the day, there's something that comes with being a Knick.
Have I not been telling you that for years, though? That playing in New York makes a difference when the team is relevant. Okay, if the team sucks, then it doesn't make a difference that you play in New York. You get no accolades, you get nothing for that. But if you play New York on a team and they're a good team, you blow up more than if you play someplace else. And I think other players around the league are starting to realize that because, like you said, they're like, oh, yo, that's Josh Hart. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, the Knicks did play well, and Josh Hart was a big part of the reason why. But then Julius Randle is down with that, and he ain't even play. You know what I'm saying? And it's because they play for the New York Knicks. And the league is better when we're better. That doesn't mean that's going to make us any better. That's not going to get us any calls in the fourth quarter. That's just that, it might make some players think twice about whether or not they want to come play for this organization. And with the culture we're building, I think it definitely pays dividends going forward.
Come on, Hartenstein. You and your, model / influencer wife do not want to live in fucking Oklahoma City or Orlando. Come on, man. Fuck that nonsense. No. Yeah. We got to figure that out. And, obviously, as these things play out, we will continue to cover them throughout the summer. The Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays, passed away at the age of 93. What many people consider to be the best all-around baseball player of all time. He starred in all sports in high school. He continued to play basketball to stay in shape during the offseason throughout the rest of his career. Shout out to my man Danny Struzzulo for that little nugget right there. He is the truest example of a 5-tool player, 24 all-star appearances, 12 gold gloves, 2 MVPs, 660 home runs, 338 doubles. And another stat that I thought was very interesting, in 24 seasons, he grounded into a total of 45 double plays.
Insane. I heard that.
And he also sang backup on the song Say Hey, the Willie Mays song, which featured an orchestra that was conducted by none other than Mr. Quincy Jones.
Yeah, okay. I vaguely remember that song from my youth, the Say Hey song. Okay. But yeah, no, I thought I heard a stat earlier that he won a Golden Glove in center field at age 39.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's insane. Now, here's a little tidbit that I'm not sure if you remember or if I've ever told you. Did I tell you when I met Willie Mays in person?
No, no.
It was at the Essex Diner, which is right across the street from the Exchange.
Okay.
I went over there one day, and I knew the owner of the Essex Diner, Uncle Pete, very well. He loved me. We were good friends because I used to work for his nephew.
What was our guy? What was the cook's name? That was our guy. He ended up working at the Exchange when Essex closed down.
Tommy.
Was
better than good.
Yeah.
But so I went over to Essex one afternoon to get something to eat, and it was closed. And I'm like, why is it closed? And Pete comes out front, and I'm like, Pete, what's going on? Why is it closed? And he looks around, and he just goes, come on inside. So I come in the Essex Diner. We walk in the back, past all the cook staff and everything. We walk in the back to the dining room, and then nobody in the dining room except Willie Mays sitting there having a sandwich and a coffee or something. Wow. And he says, Noel, I want you to meet my friend. This is Willie Mays. This is my friend Noel. And I was like, I'm blown away, man. I just, Mr. Mays, I'm so impressed to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Made a little small talk for a little while. Bid him farewell. Thanks. Very nice to meet you, sir. Truly an honor. And I walked out. But, come on, man. That's amazing. That's I got to meet Willie Mays.
You've never told me that story. Definitely not. I would have remembered that.
Yeah, no. It was pretty great, man. It was pretty cool. It's one of those things where when I walk back outside and I walk back onto the Exchange floor, I was like, did that just really happen?
Right.
It was really amazing. And he was a class act, man. I mean, he was, at least from my point of view, best player ever. That's how I grew up thinking about it. I didn't really see much of Willie Mays. I saw him at the very end when he played for the METS, which wasn't a great year for him. But, I mean, the METS did win the NL pennant that year. And, he was definitely on the downside then. But it was still good to see him in a Met uniform. And, hey, man, he's Willie Mays, man. There's not much you could say about him. He was a class act and just a very classy, dignified man.
Yeah, I heard some people say today that they think he was as important for, blacks in baseball as Jackie Robinson was, just because of him being such a huge national star during that time in the 50s and 60s. And, I implore any of our younger listeners, if you get a chance, just go to Baseball Reference and just look up his stats and just look at some of the years he had. I mean, amazing. And then when you take into account what he was doing on the defensive end, out in center field, and then also what he was doing on the bases, it's kind of hard to argue that anybody else is the greatest player of all time. I was talking, I was talking to my son, and yesterday during the broadcast of the Met game, that they came out with the news that he had passed away. Keith Hernandez, who grew up in San Francisco, was very emotional. He got choked up a little bit talking about him, and I've seen countless people in their tributes to him, especially if they're from a certain generation, having that same type of emotion when talking about Willie. But when you look at, I was talking to my kids and I had to explain to them the difference between subjective and objective, because I said yesterday that he's the best player of all time. And they said, other than Willie Mays, who's the best player? And I had to explain to them, well, that's just my opinion, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, when you really stop and think about it, it's like, okay, maybe you can argue Babe Ruth, but he was not the fielder or the base runner that he was. But Babe Ruth at one point was a dominant pitcher. So that part you got to throw into there. But I mean, other than that, you're talking about what, Barry Bonds? Maybe. I don't
think it's close. He was the best. Do you know this? Remember this. He missed 2 years in the Army.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but the Ted Williams, the Joe DiMaggios of the world, they have those. I think actually DiMaggio
his numbers. DiMaggio's numbers are great, but he wouldn't be. Willie Mays would have probably overtaken Babe Ruth in home runs.
Also, think of the park he played in.
Right. Well,
imagine if he played in Yankee Stadium and that power to the opposite way was that short porch.
He the big catch, the basket catch he made going away from home plate. He notoriously played a very, very shallow center field, and they say that catch was at 468 feet.
Right.
So 468 feet, and look, he wasn't right up against the wall. That Polo Grounds was like immense.
crazy dimensions in the Polo Grounds. And yeah, I mean, he gets that ball in a dead sprint and then has the wherewithal to get it in quickly. He says, I've seen him talk about it where he says that's all he was thinking about, and he thinks that he's made 10 plays better than that, you know, in his career. And I've heard somebody, I forget, just in the last couple, just, you know, since he passed, was talking about when you were watching that game, you didn't even think it was that amazing of a play. I think it was actually a player who was playing in the game who was like, right, was like, yeah, you just knew that he was going to get to that. As soon as it was hit, like if that stays in, he's going to get to it.
That's right. He's Willie Mays, man. That's the deal.
Yeah, you know, obviously, rest in peace to him. Just a ton of accolades. You know, losing him and Jerry West in just the span of a couple weeks, two guys that are so iconic in their sports, two guys who were, you know, great winners and really just great personalities, ambassadors for their games in such a short amount of time. Huge losses for both of those sports and for the sports world as a whole. But, you know, both of them also got to live very long, full lives, and we're all very thankful and better off for it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, they will both be very much missed. And, you know, I mean, these things obviously happen, and we'll be thinking about them. And, you know, I'm thinking that San Francisco will probably do something like put a patch on their jersey or something for the rest of the season. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think there's a good chance that the entire MLB will have some sort of patch like that next season.
Yeah, I hope so. Why not? I mean, he's worthy of it, you know. Before we go, I want to give big ups to my man Big Lou. Thanks for the shirt, Brooklyn grown. And you know, listen, it's a shame to see Willie go. And you know, he was a great player and a great ambassador for the game.
Catch us every week on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts. Please follow, like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification button on all platforms. Really appreciate all the love. You can find us on all socials at @he_did this to me. Happy Juneteenth. Love you, big guy.
Love you, kid.